Good time. Shall we bring up our first guest today? All right. I'm not going to make him sing, although he probably could. This man has a beautiful voice, you will see. Alex Patterson grew up right around here. I'm not going to give it all away. He's got a fascinating past and a really fascinating present. And he's here with his beautiful family. He's got his wife and a couple of his kids here today. So, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for my friend Alex Patterson. You guys are awesome. Little psychedelic music for our psychedelic friend. Alex, welcome.
Thank you.
So glad to have you here. I think you got a microphone on your chair. You might have sat on it. I know you got a great voice, but we got it's
ready?
on. Yeah, you're good. You're on.
All right.
Yeah, there you go. Excellent, man. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, man. So I mentioned that you're a fascinating guy. It's not just me that thinks so, by the way. Tell these folks where you've come from and what happened in your awakening and what it's brought you to today. I mean, it's a big question, right? Give us your whole life story in the next 3 minutes.
You got it. Born and raised here in Charlottesville, born at Martha Jefferson Hospital, and yep, pretty good spot, isn't it? I married a girl that I've known since she was 9 years old.
He did not marry her when she was 9 years old, just to clarify. We're not going that far.
Yeah, that's true. And I had a pretty fun professional life. A very, very different world. The guy that's sitting in front of you today could not be more different than I was 5 years ago. And that really has a lot to do with why I was invited to come up here and talk a little bit today. So, without going too much into my other professional career, I did have a pretty robust career that led me to a number of things. Back in the early part of 2014, I was asked to be involved in helping legalize industrial hemp. And at that same time, I learned that my father was dying. And my father, who is still alive, and he's 88 years old today, about to turn 89, but he is dying. He does have stage 4 cancer, and he is in that stage of life. And I was provoked, really, by that. This whole experience. I don't think as a country we're doing a very good job of dying.
Dealing with death at all, no. That's one of the things we want to talk about here. We need to get it out in the light.
Well, you talked about this being somewhat of an irreverent moment. There are very few things in culture today that are taboo. Certainly, it used to be taboo to talk about sex, really, but now people talk about it all the time. One of the only things that I think is still taboo is death. People don't like to talk about it. And one of the things I want to assure everybody is that talking about death does not make it happen sooner.
It's true. I talk to people a lot about their wills and their estate plans, and I say signing that will does not mean you're going to die anytime soon.
Absolutely the truth. So when a child is born, we throw a little party for that baby, a baby shower and everything, and that's appropriate. We should do that. But we rarely check in, as a culture, certainly, but even as friends, on that baby after 7 or 8 decades, and ask that baby, hey, baby, how's it been? How's it going? And so I became very interested in, not in a macabre way, but in death. And so a person who will remain anonymous at this point, but who I respect deeply, he said to me, he said, Alex, I think you really ought, this is about 5 years ago, you really ought to take a serious look at the research that's being done at Johns Hopkins regarding psilocybin and the end-of-life death studies.
And you were saying this because of your father?
Because of my
knowing
father.
That you were concerned for your father?
Yes, absolutely. So and he thought also that I would benefit from maybe even having a little event of my own with psilocybin.
All right, well, stop right there.
Yeah.
Because psilocybin is not a word that most of us use commonly every day or know anything about. Right. So let me back it up to say, I was raised a good Catholic boy in Minnesota. This man was raised
Orthodox Mormon.
Orthodox Mormon here in town. So as he said, he was a very different thinker before all of this transpired. So I wanted to give you that idea, and also that he was a professional speaker, maybe still is. I don't know how you make your living these days. But anyway, professional speaker on the road. So that's, and it was for like chambers of commerce around the country, very mainstream dude right here. So
not so much anymore.
So psilocybin was not part of his vocabulary.
Absolutely not a part. In fact, I appreciate you saying that, because psilocybin is the active compound or ingredient in what most of us would know as magic mushrooms. And there are many main psychedelics. The psychedelics most of us are familiar with is LSD, right? That's because Timothy Leary did such a marvelous job of screwing up and absolutely ruining the future of research for psychedelics for 4 decades. I don't know of another medical compound.
We're going to come back around to some of the history, but continue on. I wanted to get back to your part, but you go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just saying, I don't know of another medical compound that has been held off or suspended for 4 decades. So psilocybin became, Roland Griffiths, who we can talk about later, but he really is the #1 researcher on this in the world. He chose psilocybin to start this research once again 11 years ago. And he chose that instead of LSD, largely because of the negative stigma of LSD and really the end of the 60s and early 70s and all the upheaval that happened there. So psilocybin for me was about as foreign as anything. I mean, I am somewhat misunderstood now because I have some extensive psychedelic experience of my own, that I will take anything. I just want you to know I am the biggest scaredy cat on the planet. Sudafed affects me, where I won't take certain cold medicines. I do not drink alcohol. I mean, I am not a wild party guy. But I did have this incredible, unparalleled, really a matchless experience, my wife and I both on that same evening, that completely changed my life. So I'm going to kind of jump through just to this part right here, just as really why I'm sitting in this chair. Years and years ago, and I'll kind of leave out the details of how we got there, my wife and I did, oh, by the way, I do have to say this. So Bunny, which is my wife's name, she is completely adverse to any kind of medicines also. Our last child, 10 pounds, 10 ounces, she did it naturally, wouldn't take an aspirin. So this is the kind of woman she is, right? And so she did all this research because the idea of saying, well, honey, I'd like to, eat some magic mushrooms together. This was not really a conversation that we were used to having with one another. So she did a lot of research on it, and the takeaway was this. On one evening, and this is absolutely without any sort of hyperbole or anything else, on one evening, I had such an unexpected experience that it has forever changed my life. And let me give you a little before and after. Before, I viewed life quite differently. I would see people and just naturally notice the differences in everybody. I would notice, maybe a different economic background or a different, certainly ethnic background, maybe a different emotional background, certainly a different sexual preference background. I just continually noticed the differences in people and believed that we were all having an individual and separate experience. I just did. And if you live in that kind of mindset, and I don't want to make too much of it, but it's sort of an indoctrination of our culture, really. But if you live in that kind of mindset, something naturally happens, and that is judgments will bubble up. And you kind of just instinctively, sort of reflexively judge another person.
Yeah, and that keeps us even more.
Oh, it's the worst. So, to my great amazement, with this unexpected evening, I became unshakably convinced that we are, as corny or hallmarky as it is to say, we really are all interconnected. And when you understand the unity, and I don't mean this as metaphor, I don't mean, quite literally, you are me. And that goes for everybody. And it's not just people. It also goes to rabbits and trees.
And you're talking about we're all part of the same quantum field. We're all part of the love force, the God force, just like quantum leap, the quantum field.
So in psychedelic speak, once you start to get deep into the research of this, you'll hear certain verbiage. One of the verbiages are that, with a high dose of psilocybin, we can occasion a mystical experience 87% of the time. So the word occasion, see, that's kind of a thing they use. Another thing they use is this great word, but it is kind of a slippery word, and that is ineffable. So they'll say, hey, so tell me about it, Alex. Well, the experience is beyond words, right? And then you just leave it at that.
Use words now to tell us.
Well, so with that in mind, this experience that really is beyond words, because there is not a vocabulary to capture these things that I'm stabbing at now. And that's this concept of literally understanding, not reading about it, not hearing about it from somebody else.
From your own experience.
But actually understanding. And to say it was my own experience almost seems inappropriate, because it was such an experience. It's actually all of our experiences. We're just not aware of it. And for that brief moment, I was transported there. So I know later today, this afternoon, you're going to talk about out-of-body experiences and many things. This is a very powerful tool to gain an insight into a reality that I personally had no concept that existed. And when I became convinced in that evening, and again, there's not any faith that's needed from the individual. You don't need to want this to happen. You don't need to, fast a certain number of days or stand on your foot. You don't need to do any kind of ritual. It will be delivered to you. And when that actually happens, you've heard the saying that once you see, you cannot unsee. So one of the best markers of, I think, progress or change is actual behavior.
And talking about yourself again?
Yeah, I'm talking about myself.
Changed?
I'm talking about myself. So,
all right.
And again, I'm not here to slam the Mormon church. Yeah, here's a confession. So, not to slam the Mormon church, but my wife and I never went back. I mean, we're lifelong sealed in the Mormon temple. We were just months away from putting my son back here, who's now 23, on a mission, and it literally changed our lives. And we became aware, and without any need, despite what I'm doing right now, without any need to evangelize what was happening. I'm talking about it now because I was asked to do it, but I have no desire to run around trying to convince people of what I have discovered. And by the way, I don't need to. You can discover it too, for yourself. So, and that brings up an interesting point about legality.
Well, all right, but did you finish with telling us
Well,
the behavioral changes? So
behavioral
you left
changes.
Mormon church. You changed your political views. You told me
well,
you
you're supposed
opened
to
up.
keep that
You
private.
opened up to
Supposed to
a
keep that
whole lot of
private,
new
Pat.
people in your life.
They're supposed to keep that private.
I know. This is like today's supposed to be like the antidote to what's happening out in the world, all that craziness. We're talking about all this fun, cool stuff. So yeah, I don't mean to go down the political road. The point is just that you really had this major shift in your life as a result of this experience.
I did. I mean, I absolutely did. And without standing up here and just blowing the trumpet, I will say my wife and children. I have my eldest here, also my youngest, who's 9. We also have plenty in between, but there's not here today.
We know about Mormons.
Yeah, that's right. And Catholics.
And Catholics. Yeah.
Yeah.
You bet. Our family was small with only 6 of us.
Yeah. Oh well. They would say that I'm a gentler person. I am certainly. I will say this. I remember vividly. I don't know why I'm using these religious vernaculars. Probably because I'm in a church. But I remember trying to get the kids to church. Get in the car. And then as I'm driving to church, I'm white knuckling that. Wishing that I had a cannon mounted on the hood of my car. And this is on the way to church. And so I get into church, and it doesn't get any better from there, So today, quite literally, I drive very differently, and I am, and again, I don't want to go on and on, but I am different in just about every possible way, and so much so that I do think about this rather frequently, and so much that I've been involved in the underground side of this, because we're going to talk about legalities a little bit later. Psilocybin, which is currently illegal, but about to go legal. But nobody's waiting. A lot of people are doing it now.
Well, let's jump into that now. So how many of you, and again, I want to hear this, how many of you have read Michael Pollan's book?
Excellent.
How to Change Your Mind? Some of you have, most of you have not. So he wrote this book. You all know Michael Pollan. He's famous as a food writer, but he started eating mushrooms.
Well, he wrote the Omnivore's Dilemma. Also, yeah, you know, right? Fantastic book. Also, The Botany of Desire, which was made into a PBS two-part special. Excellent. So this is a mainstream best-selling author.
So just last year, he wrote a book about his experiences into the world of psychedelic medicine research. And he referenced some of the people Alex was just talking about, including Roland Griffiths, who's the most famous up at Johns Hopkins University. But there's also some folks out in California and New Mexico who have done not only psilocybin research, but also ayahuasca or DMT, which we can cover that a little bit if some of you know about those different psychedelic medicines. So yeah, tell us about the legality and why it's going to become legal, because you were alluding to, but you haven't gotten to quite all the side benefits of these psychedelic medicines.
So here it is. It's amazing. I know our phones are off right now, and they should be. But when you turn them back on, Google the word psilocybin or the word psychedelic, and then
Psilybin.
There it is.
Psilocybin, I think that's what, something like that.
Or the word psychedelic, and then on the Google bar, hit the news. That way you get the real articles, you know, that come up. And you'll see, starting with December 1st, 2016, although you'll never get there because every hour almost, certainly every day, new information's coming out. But since December 1st, 2016, when a landmark study was released by Johns Hopkins in the Journal of Psychopharmacology, it has changed everything. And I'll say a couple more things before we talk really about the legality and why this is so important. So Johns Hopkins is leading the nation, but 2 weeks ago, they petitioned the government with 17 other universities from around the world to reclassify psilocybin from a Schedule I substance, which it is now, which makes it illegal, to a Schedule IV substance, which means a doctor can prescribe it. And that is a big deal. This is on the heels of receiving...
They requested it. They haven't gotten the permission.
No, yeah, they requested it. Okay. This is in process. So it's already in its third clinical trial with the FDA. Okay, so...
that's serious testing already.
Very serious.
So let me just take a quick moment aside and just give a quick little recap of history. Let's say.
All right.
So you mentioned Timothy Leary back in the '60s was doing a lot of this LSD research and the potential benefits of LSD for all of us, overcome fear of death, anxiety, et cetera, and really having some great results. But then went off the deep end, starts giving it out to everybody.
Which was not a bad idea, by the way.
I'm
for that part.
Except that he was a researcher who had certain protocols that he went against.
That's right.
That's true. So by 1970, our friend Richard Nixon and the Congress made these drugs illegal. And made them Class I drugs. So ever since 1970, and by the way, my friend Elvis, as you know, was the drug czar or whatever. He was like the spokesman for the anti-drug campaign while he was doing his thing. But anyway, so then came Nancy Reagan, right, in the 80s, just say no to drugs. Anybody my age, our age, went through all those decades, 70s, 80s, 90s, and the early 2000s as, holy crap, those are scary. This is your brain on drugs. You know, that's what's going to happen to you. So that's a whole paradigm that's starting to shift as a result of the research finally getting out there.
Yeah, it's a fantastic point because the research really drives the truth, right? One thing that echoes this is the FDA about 6 weeks ago gave psilocybin what is called a breakthrough therapy status. This has only been handed out a handful of times in the history of the Food and Drug Administration. And here's what it means. If you look it up, you can read it right from their page. If a new discovery of a drug can substantially, and that's the key word, and there has to be evidence of it, so there has to be preliminary trials, but substantially improve other situations or other drugs, then it gets fast-tracked and it gets approved. And so it takes about 7 years to get a drug to market. It can happen in less than 12 months with a breakthrough therapy status, and psilocybin now has that. So it's about to go legal. Just today it was announced that Denver now has enough signatures, this is rather amazing, to go as a municipality. So it's not even waiting for the state. Denver is going to decriminalize psilocybin in May. That'll be the first city. St. Vincent's Hospital in Melbourne, Australia, is now giving psilocybin out to dying patients.
And again, why would they do that?
Okay, so here's the remarkable thing. Prozac, Wellbutrin, these kind of things, they show in the neighborhood of 42 to 47%. There's not a antidepressant drug on the market that breaks the 50% threshold. So psilocybin has been proven, and this is a drug that you have to take every day. It's very expensive. Psilocybin is proven to deliver an 82 to 87% effectiveness for treatment-resistant depression. These are people who have not received any kind of benefit from any other treatment, so they've been depressed for a while, and nothing else has worked. This has worked more than double with one dose. So this is not something that you take again and again and again.
The next point about psilocybin is it is non-toxic.
Well, this is the big thing. So I don't know another drug out there that is non-toxic. So when Bunny, my wife, was doing the research on this, I mean, we all know that Tylenol has a toxicity. There is no toxicity to psilocybin. There's more toxicity in a cup of coffee than there is in a 5-gram mushroom dose, which is a pretty strong dose.
So what about the addiction?
And absolutely no addictive qualities. This is not a drug of abuse. So this is not something you do over and over again. Because I am this underground facilitator and I'm such a vocal person about it, people often have the perception that I'm taking mushrooms rather frequently. And
we don't know what's in these mugs, Alex.
And by the way, it would be fantastic if I could, take them as frequently as once a month. They recommend people take them, once every 6 months or once every 12 months. People have different kinds of thresholds here, but this transformative power that happened to my wife, I mean, she hasn't eaten them since, it's been over a year, since January of 2017 or 2018. So it really is a safe and certainly powerful. I had somebody who is a tremendous lover of the Monroe Institute. This woman has gone to the Monroe, she'll remain nameless, but she's gone to the Monroe Institute now for 16 years. She's going again this Friday for another week. She sat with me in December and had the most incredible experience. She had an experience that was so profoundly transformative, and I'm convinced, largely, it's because of her previous training at your facility. One of the things I try to get people to do when they're in this state, and this is one of the hardest parts, is to let them let go, right? To get people to let go. People think they know what that means. They don't. So to be able to help and help somebody let go and to see the transformation in this person's life has been nothing short of incredible. One more comment, because I know the music's going and our time is too brief.
It is brief, and then we got questions after this too. So
but my fantasy about you.
Yeah? Oh, hello.
about all of you. My fantasy is that after our brief moment here today, that you will override maybe some preconceived bias, and that you'll take it upon yourselves to do some research on this. The research is abundant, and this is going to be legal coast to coast in this country. 2 years on the shorter side, certainly by 5 years. My sources say 2 years. It won't take longer than 3 years. So,
well, let me ask this too, and then we'll get to. I think, have you all been handing in your questions to Joanne and all that? Let somebody go around and pick up the questions, because we're about ready for question time. Put your questions up in the air, if you please, and then Joanne, the volunteers will come get them. Put your notes up in the air for questions for Alex. But I wanted to let you know that I went to a talk at University of Virginia. It's for the medical grand rounds, they call it, and it was this doctor from Richmond. His name is Patrick Belisle. And he talked about his research that he's been doing with ketamine. How many of you know about ketamine? There we go. Okay, thank you. So ketamine is used for all sorts of things, not what I'm talking about, but what they do is they give ketamine to the point where you have something like an out-of-body experience, where you witness yourself outside of your own body. And what they're finding is when they get people to that stage of having this hallucinogenic or psychedelic type experience, and then they come back in, just like Alex is pointing out with psilocybin, they're finding that in 80 to 90% of these cases, people almost immediately overcome anxiety, depression, fear of death, sometimes addictions. I mean, all sorts of things. It's just really kind of unbelievable, almost like a magic wand. And if we know this stuff, some of it is non-toxic and non-addictive, that is something else.
It does address addiction, the opioid addiction. We can talk more about that later when we, on the next show. It does address the existential despair that surrounds death. That's a big theme, and it is a marvelous anxiety reducer. It just absolutely will melt away anxiety for a protracted period of time. And I had somebody ask me, can you tell that it's working? This is a medicine that you can feel working. So the last thing I want to end with is my father. This guy is a prince of a man, and he is about to roll up the scrolls. The doctor turned to me over 2 years ago and told me, your father doesn't have 6 months. So he's been rather amazing. And of course, a natural thing is to be concerned about your state of affairs when you're in this frail place, because the word "we grow old and die" isn't true. The truth is, we grow old, we sicken, and then we die. So during that sickening period, a lot of anxiety can build up in the individual, and the person maybe has lost contact with who they were, and they're trying to hold on to that. None of this is a good prescription for preparing for death, by the way. So my father, after talking to him about it at extensive length, has received, of course, he has had psilocybin, and the takeaway, I think if we were to put it down into the delta, what is the main thing that I have benefited from as a result of my close relationship with this remarkable compound? And it comes up to 3 words. And those words are gratitude, humility, and forgiveness. And if you start to have those 3 words that aren't just phrases, but they are actually foundational qualities of your life, it truly does turn you from the inside out. I mean, it nourishes you in a way that I have never been nourished by anything else in the 51 years I've been on this planet.
Oh, it's beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Patterson. Give me some love, man. All right. Well, while Joanne is vetting through your questions, I'm going to play a little game with Alex, just to buy her a minute or two. This game for you, Alex, is called "Whose Trip Is This Anyway?"
All right. All right.
And it's some famous trips that famous people have taken over the years. Question number 1 kind of gets at, you just mentioned forgiveness, and this is part of this person's trip. He says, it is a he says, "After my psilocybin trip, I had the first serious long talk with my mother, and I learned that I love her more than I thought." Now, that's not exactly saying more than I thought. Who do you think that is? Famous writer, traveler, beatnik?
Well, I don't have any idea, so this will be a guess. Of course, I'll say Allen Ginsberg.
Oh, good one. No, I'm going to go to him next, though. That was Jack Kerouac.
Jack Kerouac.
And about the same time.
All the beatniks. You said beatnik, so.
No, this was the other one for Ginsberg, though. This is great. You got right to him. This poet's first mystical experience happened naturally as a result of reading poet William Blake.
Yep.
And then he tried to recreate the experience over and over again by trying LSD, ayahuasca, datura, psilocybin, and more. He wrote Howl, his famous poem Howl. He wrote that on peyote, on a peyote trip.
true.
So that's Allen Ginsberg. All right, try this one. This Lakota Sioux medicine man described missing his family so much that he projected his own consciousness out, floated on a cloud from New York City to South Dakota to visit them, and then back again.
I'd have to guess Black Elk.
Way to go, man. Black Elk. Everybody, yeah. Everybody read Black Elk Speaks? Y'all know Black Elk Speaks? That's a book for you to read. That's fantastic. Black Elk was a medicine man who grew up on the, free out on the plains of America, and there's this book about his amazing experiences. All right, here's another one. You already got this one yourself. You kind of gave it away. I gave it away. We gave it away earlier. What famous LSD and psilocybin researcher abandoned his protocols and distributed it to his Harvard students and friends in 1962?
Timothy Leary.
All right. And last one. Joanne, you almost ready with the questions?
Yep.
All right. Last question. This famous psychologist had a heart attack which led to a near-death experience in which he saw and then correctly predicted the death of his own doctor.
Interesting. I have no idea. Who is that?
That is Carl Gustav Jung.
No way.
Yeah, man.
What?
So he was tripping out too.
That is fantastic.
I know. All right, well, good.
That
You
is
did
great.
well, man.
That is
Nicely
great.
done. All right, Joanne, what do you have for us?
Okay, I'd like to actually combine two questions because they're basically covering the same thing.
Yeah.
First, Alex, can you speak to the risks involved in taking this and how to ensure a safe experience? And the second question that's part of this is, what about needing a companion or guide? What about people who have trauma
This is a great question.
in their background, and how can they have a good trip?
This is a great question. So, and this is usually the first question everybody asks. The dangers of psilocybin are mitigated completely with a few responsible approaches. All right, so the approach number one is understand, why are we doing it? If you're doing it recreationally, then I'm not really the person to talk to about that. The experience that I've had has all been therapeutic. Now, some of that therapy has been an awful lot of fun that has involved hours of laughter, but nonetheless therapy. So to answer your question, the DEA, and if you were to Google the dangers of psilocybin, the DEA will tell you one of the main dangers of psilocybin is that you can overdose and it can cause death. Now wait. If you will then research what they mean by that, and they do tell you on the same page, it's on their front page, they say the danger with psilocybin is you may procure the wrong mushroom, which can cause, some mushrooms can cause liver damage, brain damage, all kinds of problems. Well, that's ridiculous. That's like saying the danger in water is that I also might drink battery acid. So the truth is, if you are able to, the main danger from psilocybin is to make sure you are actually having
Eating psilocybin.
Yeah, and you're not eating some sort of poison. Now, the only other danger really is what they call the integration. I like to have people understand there are 3 steps to this process. There is the preparation, which is important. And when I work with people, we work rather extensively to make sure that there is a good relationship there and we understand what's going on. Number 2 is, of course, the experience itself. And that is something that if anybody's interested, you're welcome to email me, alex@alexpatterson.com. I'd be happy to talk to you more about that in more depth later. And then the most important part to answer this question is the integration. Now, having this experience is one thing, but having this experience and then being able to actually have it influence your life in a positive way is really the goal. So that is very easy to do. The nice thing about this, there's not any responsibility on a guru or a shaman or even a because
But you do recommend having a guide.
a guide is a
someone to
must.
sit- Yeah.
A guide is a must because really it's all part of letting go. If you don't have somebody there with you, you may be so flummoxed by the situation or get into an overwhelming moment that then can become rather extreme. And if you have a guide there, that person who has experience, and certainly we can talk about that too, but that guide can then help usher you through the experience. But I want you to know, it is not the guide or physician providing the experience. This is the most unique experience. It's an intelligent compound that actually dialogues with you. After the 5 to 6 hours, you feel as though you've had about 15 years of therapy. The medicine, the results now, the scientists now are saying that this is going to be more powerful and effective in learning how our consciousness works and how to help mental health, mental illness. I mean, suicide rates are lower in the groups that take psilocybin, on and on and on. Then he said, this will be like to mental health, like the telescope is to the stars.
That's a beautiful thing.
It really is.
And Alex, by the way, I met Alex at a University of Virginia Division of Perceptual Studies connection. We have that kind of connection. So check them out at uvadops.org. I want to make a commercial for them too, because while they're not doing
100%.
the psilocybin or psychedelic research, they are researching the nature of consciousness, and they're hugely important to setting a scientific foundation for what is consciousness. Joanne, what else you got?
Okay, I'm going to combine another
And then
two
this
questions.
is, we'll just do one last one, sorry folks, and then we'll bring up Dr. Amrita.
Okay. MDs are pretty conservative. Who do you foresee prescribing psilocybin, and so where do you get this substance, and how do you know its potency?
Right. These are great questions. Really, the best way to answer that question is to understand that a medical doctor is not the one that is providing the experience. So how this is going to be delivered in the future, we will not get a prescription from our GP to go down and pick up psilocybin at CVS. There will be centers. They're already being constructed. Peter Thiel, the billionaire capitalist, has started a company called Pathways. He's already put $300 million into this. So they are building facilities all over the world, and there will be facilities that will yet pop up, people will go to a facility for a week long or a weekend or a day and receive certain kind of treatment.
That was my next question. It's not like a marijuana dispensary at some of these places where you can just go in, buy your thing, and head out. This is actually guided and watched over.
The really only danger, and there truly is no danger from the substance itself. The only danger is if somebody is taking it at a concert or in some unsafe place, because truth be known, you are in another dimension. So you may not be aware of what's happening around you. And so it is important to have somebody there just to kind of watch over your body so that you don't have to worry about it, so that you're actually able to let go and have the full experience.
We got a little Twilight Zone going on over there. Thank you, Alex. Once again,
Alex at alexpatterson.com. That's my email, Alex at alexpatterson.com. I'm happy to sit down and talk to you guys about
Once
this.
again, a little love for Alex Patterson, ladies and gentlemen. Stay up here, buddy. Stay up here. You're going to be right over here, man. Woo! Bless you, sir. And now keep your hands warm, because our next guest is going to say a little bit about her own experience as a medical doctor and as a yogini at Yogaville. That is Dr. Amrita Sandra McLanahan. Ladies and gentlemen, come on up. Stand up, please. Stand up. Here's your microphone. You gotta come up.
So take a deep breath and your favorite stretch. One of the things we need to do is learn not to sit for long periods of time.
Yeah, good.
We are 70% fluids. We're little walking aquariums, actually. That's why we can live on land, because, and you know, if an aquarium just sits still, it's not so healthy. So
you don't even need a talk show host. You go, girl. Thank you all, and thank you, Dr. McLanahan. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
You know, you can.
Opportunity.
You bet. You can always tell so much from a person by their name, right? I mean, you hear Patrick Belisle, you probably can guess that I'm half Irish and half French-Canadian just by my name, right? Patrick Belisle. Well, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your history based on your name. How did you get Sandra McLanahan, and then how did you get Amrita, and then how did you get doctor?
Well, I was born in Chicago, grew up in Detroit. I got interested in the idea of a different approach to medicine while I was in medical school, because I began to see that so many diseases had a preventive aspect, and it wasn't being addressed by just drugs and surgery. Even still now, most medical schools just drugs and surgery, not those kind of drugs, other kind of drugs. And they have side effects. And one of my patients said, when you have them, they're not side effects, they're effects. And that's the point. So I went to my first yoga class. Someone recommended it. I thought as a stressed out medical student, I'd have to tie myself into knots.
Can we ask about what year that was?
1970. And so I found that just the most gentle stretching felt such a relief and a release of that stretch as a medical student. Then I did the deep relaxation, where you start at the toes and go up your body and relax, relax, relax. And then come to the space between your eyebrows, and then watch your thoughts, and let go of your thoughts, and wow.
And so you were
pure consciousness.
you were still Sandra McLanahan
I was
at this
still
point.
Sandra then.
Good. Is that
But
an
I
Irish-
said to
Irish
myself,
girl too?
this is a kind of medicine. And I've been studying it ever since. It's a powerful medicine to experience ourselves as our essential source. We can all be sorcerers.
Nice, I
Why
like
should
it.
Harry Potter have all the fun?
So how did you come to? I think it's Swami Satchidananda.
So that was a
that-
Swami Satchidananda teacher who taught me, and I went on my first retreat. And after that, I became more interested in his particular approach. He says truth is one, that essential consciousness is one, it's in everything, it is everything. There's only one of us here, just appearing as many. And I said that to a friend at dinner. I said, there's only one of us here. And he just looked at me and he said, which one? And I thought, there goes the whole Mideast crisis in a nutshell. Yes. But I'm encouraged by in these times of turmoil, two particular quotes. Mahatma Gandhi said, in the end, truth and justice will win out, ... because they always do. And then I pair that with Winston Churchill, who said, I trust America to do the right thing after having exhausted all other options.
Well, we're working on that, aren't we?
We're working on that.
Nicely done.
Well, as
so again,
humans, we exhaust many options to try to be healthy and to try to live a long life. But the word Amrita, my name, my spiritual name, means no, Mrit means death, no death. So when Swami Satchidananda gave me that Sanskrit name, he said, put that in your doctor bag, not drugs. And
I love
the
it.
knowledge of immortality, the knowledge that none of us are going anywhere anyway, so we might as well relax.
That's how Edgar Cayce says it, right? We're all going
Yes.
to get back to the Creator eventually. Let's just all love each other and cooperate until we get there, right? Let's just have patience with each other.
That's why I'm wearing this love hat, because the
Aw.
aim of all our practices, whatever they are, is to experience that love and continue to give and experience that love. I read a transcript of a talk by Swami Satchidananda where he said, we have an original state of ease. Any baby could put its toe in its mouth, do any yoga posture. What happened? We have an original state of ease, and then we get dis-ease by our choices and behaviors. But the framework of the choices and behaviors is the answer to the question, who are we, and what are we supposed to be doing here? Because that frames then the choices. If I feel like, oh, I need a treat, I've been working too hard, and then we eat inflammatory foods or do inflammatory actions.
We'll stop right
we
there.
get
What does
into
he
trouble.
say we are here to do?
Yes, well, that's the point, is that the point of life is for fun. It's for love, and love is the best fun. It keeps you safe, and it keeps other people safe. So there's a simple little trick I like to do. If you have a pen, take the pen and put it like this. And your endorphins, which are 100 times more potent than morphine, which is the big guns in the ER for pain, will stay the same. But put your pen like this, or this in it. And all of a sudden, your endorphins start to go up, because the body thinks it's smiling. And so the next time you're not feeling so great,
I'll interpret. Your body thinks it's smiling
and
when
everybody,
you have...
if everybody in your office is walking around like this, you know you got a howl.
And everybody in your office, that was
But
very good.
babies at age 2 days will turn more to see 2 dots and an upturned curve than 2 dots in a straight line. It's our natural state. We are born yogis. We are meant to live. I am yoga. I am peace. We are that peace. We are that joy. And we're not going anywhere. So we
Amen,
might as well
sister.
relax. So I'll tell you 2 quick stories.
Amen.
2 quick stories from my life. A friend of mine was killed, and I was comforting his wife. And in the middle of the night, his spirit body came and woke me up and said, I want to dictate a letter to my wife. I can't get through to her. She's too upset. I said, oh, okay. I took out my pen, and he said, the light's much better over here. He said, time just doesn't stand still. It sits still. It was so beautiful. And that's, our right brain knows that. And right brain doesn't experience time and space at all, which is a little clue. They don't exist. The brain makes them up. The brain makes up time and space. This is summer camp. That's home. And we can experience home, we can experience heaven as a state of mind when the mind, with its 600 thoughts a minute, depending on where you live, between 300 and 1,000 thoughts a minute, we think. If you live in New York, it's about 1,000 minutes. And in Charlottesville, it's a little quieter. But during meditation, we quiet down the mind, which is compared to a bowl of water with little choppy waves on the top, above that essential love and spirit and joy and consciousness that's within everybody. As we quiet the mind in meditation, maybe 550 a minute, then we feel that essential peace. And when we feel it in ourselves, we can see it shining in everyone else. So the next time you have a trouble with anybody else, don't punch the mirror. You lose the mirror, you hurt your hand, and you still have the spot. The mirror's trying to show you. It's all done with mirrors, all the time. So if we give out love to an animal, it doesn't take too long. A child, it takes maybe a little longer, depending on the child. Adult, it might take longer. Beautiful. But eventually they will reflect back the same essential, pure consciousness.
Awesome. Let me ask you a question. Oh, did you not bring your? Here you go. Here's another. Oh yeah, share. We're all one. We're
all one.
We're all one, baby. Fill it up.
One.
There you go.
Well, the second near-death,
right.
I had a friend who had cerebral malaria she got in India. So she was in a coma for a week, and then when she came back into her body, she said, it was like putting on too tight pantyhose. Because who we are is radiant, glorious being of light, of pure consciousness. And you can describe it like the chakras. If your thoughts are focused on, is this a safe place? Am I welcome? Am I going to get a chance to be comfortable here? That's chakra 1. So if you have problems with your legs or foot, that's related to, are you feeling safe? Are you feeling welcome? So I was the camp doctor for Paul Winter at Living Music Camp. They were playing music for 2 weeks. Nobody was getting sick. They were just singing and dancing and walking through the woods playing music. On the last day, one woman stepped on a stick and she came in to see me. And she had a wound in her foot. And I said, do you have any questions or doubts about your next step in life? She said, oh, yes, I have to go home and see if I need to divorce my husband. So our body reflects what's going on in our lives. Chakra 2, you look around the room, look for mate. Or sex and money are chakra 2, the pelvis. So you'd be saying potential mate, competition, irrelevant. So those are the chakra 3, who's in charge? And the people who have put on weight in the belly don't feel strong enough. So the body says, I'll pack fat around my adrenals. Let
me stop you at chakra 3. How many of you know about chakras? Let's hear it. Let's hear it. All right. All right. I just wanted to make sure that she wasn't in her chakra ladder here, wasn't over your all's head. Keep going. What's that chakra for?
The Sanskrit word chakra. So we talk about these as the diversity chakras, the lower chakras, where we notice the differences between us. But at the level of the unity chakras, when you get up to the heart, we see, oh, we're not so different. You have issues similar to me. I can see that somebody's looking back at me who's me, similar to me. And at the level of the 5th chakra, we start to communicate. At the level of the 6th, we start to say, hey, maybe it's not one being, one who's separate, me separate from you, but it's a beingness that is appearing as many. At the level of the 7th, you feel that unity with another person. There's a great phrase from Abraham Lincoln. He said, I don't like that person. I have to get to know them better. That's it.
That sounds good. Well, let me ask you a couple questions, if I may now. One, you worked on mind-body medicine for a long time doing research with Dean Ornish. You all know Dean Ornish? He was he was President Clinton's physician, I think, for some time. So what was that all about, and what did you discover in your research, mind-body research?
He has a new book called Undo It. It's about undoing our bad habits. If you were to go into any hospital and walk up and down the aisles with a tape recorder, talk to the patients, figure out why people get sick, it's one of 5 immediate reasons. Number 1 is diet. We're eating a diet that's making us sick, and that's what there's so much science now. More than 35 years, Dean Ornish has been showing vegan diet can prevent and reverse not only heart disease, but cancer and diabetes and arthritis and even the aging process. He's now showed that it actually reverses aging.
Amrita's actually 137 years old. She just looks fantastic.
I am 73, and I don't always follow my own advice that I give my patients, but I'm learning to, because pain is a great motivator. Pain is our friend. It pushes us in the right direction. Both emotional pain and physical pain can teach us. It's our teacher and our friend. If we didn't have pain, we would lose our fingertips because we wouldn't withdraw them from hot surfaces. Pain is to tell us something important. So number 2 cause of illness is cigarettes, which still 1 out of 5 Americans smokes. And when I smoked, which I learned how to do in medical school before I got into yoga, people would come up to me and say, you should quit smoking. I just smoke more, because nobody likes to be told. We don't like to be told what to do. In fact, when we're told what to do, we feel like doing the opposite, don't we? So one person at a party came up to me and they put their hand on my arm and they said, what's a great person like you doing smoking? So the message was that I was valuable, and I think that's the message we need to give our children and ourselves. And love inspires change. Shame and guilt, we'll invite Ben and Jerry over. They feel like good people to invite over when we're under stress. So number 3 cause of illness, alcohol. It doesn't prevent heart disease. That's the hot tip. The British Medical Journal. In England, they have to pay for medical care, so they do very important research.
That's too bad, because my doctor once prescribed 1 beer a day for my
I know,
heart health.
That was the wisdom for many years, and it's helped make alcohol a bigger and bigger section at my local food line, as if it's going to help us. But it's a poison. If you take even 1 beer or 1 glass of wine, take a biopsy of your liver and look at it under the microscope, there'll be death to liver cells. It's a poison. There's death to brain cells, especially the part of the brain having to do with good decision making.
This is so interesting too, and I'm going to, after you get to number 4 and 5, I'm going to come back to psychedelic medicines, because we just heard that they're non-toxic, and alcohol is much more toxic. You all know about fetal alcohol syndrome and you know what it does to your own body and bodies that you're
culture too,
carrying.
it's not such a great decision. Most murders, most automobile accidents still. Texting while driving is catching up, but most boating accidents every year in Virginia, we have people, and most accidents in general, and most horseback riding accidents alcohol related, and most snake bites alcohol related.
What? Come
and
on
it wasn't
now.
the snake drinking the alcohol.
Oh, you.
So once again, as a culture, should we have 23 miserable hours a day and 1 happy hour a day caused by
nice.
poisoning ourselves?
Way to
People
go.
drink alcohol thinking it'll relax you. It's a poison. We
You're
don't
so
have to
good.
take poison
We're
to
convinced.
relax.
We're convinced. What's number 4?
Okay. Number 4 is lack of exercise. Once again, laughter is one of the simplest forms of yoga. Ha ha, let's all laugh. Ha ha. You are 30 times more likely to laugh if you're in a group. That's why laughter yoga is so helpful, and that's why gatherings like this are so wonderful. And I want to thank you for gathering us all together. I want to thank Anna Maria. She lives at Yogaville too. Sister-in-law, yes. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Anna
I'm
Maria.
godparent to her
Yes.
nieces and
Why don't you
nephews.
stand up, Anna Maria, so they can meet you?
Oh, this is a
from
little
Ireland.
joke. No, she said stand up, Anna Maria.
Yes.
My sweet Irish friend.
Yes, and number 5, immediate cause of illness is stress. And stress is defined as any change to a system. Any change. The original research on rat volunteers, they changed where the cheese was, and they got this fight or flight syndrome and all the effects of stress, even if it was a good change. So what's the definition of life? Change. I mean, otherwise it's flatlined. What's the definition of life then? Stress. So we need to address our stress as a culture so that we don't use stress to choose bad behaviors in our life, and also in terms of the mind. So the immediate, most common cause of illness from an emotional point of view in America is loneliness. Mother Teresa said, loneliness is the poverty of the West, and it's a deeper poverty than the poverty of the East. I've been into India many times, seen happier people living on so much less than what we have.
So community and companionship.
Community, yes, there are 5 elements to healthy life. Body, take care of the body, take care of the mind, take care of the spirit, and then nature, our connection to nature. We all do better when we take a deep breath. If it's healthy air, let's all take a deep breath anyway. There's a lot more carbon dioxide in this room than there was, but at least we're getting some oxygen. And then number 5 is is community, because we are social creatures. Somebody goes like this, what do we feel like doing? Like this. This is why you should call everybody darling, because they'll behave how you call them.
Well, these are not just sort of Sunday school tips or whatever. These are really research-based ideas that Dr. McLanahan's talking about.
Is very well documented now.
just
And the
the
number 2 cause is anger. It's the most common, as you described, driving in traffic. When I did the research on reversing heart disease with Dr. Ornish, I taught the yoga for the first 3 research projects, and I would go to people's homes and they would drive me, and that was a good barometer of who has heart disease. Okay.
Well, let me.
But somebody gave me a great definition of anger. They said anger is when we take poison hoping it'll hurt someone else. So instead of anger, we choose compassion. If we could, there's a great French proverb, to know all is to forgive all. And Longfellow said, if you could know the secret history of your enemy, all your anger would cease and you would flow with compassion if you could know the secret history behind people's behavior. So the number 3 cause is depression. It's our own pression that causes our depression. We want things to look a certain way in order to be happy. But the word happiness has its root happening. So you can't pursue happiness. Then you're in the pursuit to be somewhere else. Happiness lives in the happening. So accepting this moment, it looks perfect as it is. There's a Webster's dictionary has an old definition of perfect. It says, perfect is that which contains everything needed to be it. So that's it. All of us are perfect in our unfoldment. Some of us are partly unfold, and some of us are thorns. To make the picture complete, So it allows us, let's all take a deep breath. That fires signal up to the brain that then activates the relaxation response, the opposite of the stress response. So the most portable of all the yoga tools is simply deep breathing. Just remember to breathe as you go through your day, and except while you're driving through a tunnel, don't deep breathe in. Otherwise, deep breathing, very, very helpful. And then stretching, remember to stretch. Let's just twist a little bit. That'll bring some circulation to the kidneys and release the adrenals. Everybody
Did
turn,
you get to number
twist.
4 and 5 on this list, or are we still at number 3?
Well, the 5 were diet,
Exercise.
cigarettes, alcohol, lack of
definitely.
exercise, and stress. Those
Bless
are the
you.
5.
Thank you.
And
All right. Well,
our-
just let me play devil's advocate, and then we're going to move to question answer with the audience, and I'm going to have Alex respond here too. But my devil's advocate is, and again, I just want you all to know, I'm just like Alex said. He was a fraidy cat. I'm a fraidy cat. I've never done any kind of psychedelic, whatever, hallucinogen, whatever, anything. But listening to Alex and reading this research and all the rest of it, it really, and having had my mystical experience when I did really touch that oneness, that unconditional love that I would love to recreate and seek out. And I love the deep breath, but it doesn't get me there. You know what I mean?
If
So
you
how do
continue
I
it
have
all day
that
long, it
interaction?
will continue to move you in that direction. And there's stretching, breathing, meditating,
And over time,
mindfulness.
my depression would
over
go
time.
down. And
yes.
yeah. So
but if
over
you take
time.
a pill to get that experience, it's like taking a jet plane up to the higher spheres without a parachute. You may have a good experience, you may not. And it only leads you up there a certain time, and then you have to come down if you take a drug. So if you're doing it naturally, and that's it. In my own life, I have experienced this. Yeah. The more natural approaches I use, the less the side effects there are.
Sure. Alex, what do you have a
more
question or comment
and
for
resistant
Dr. McLanahan?
we become.
I'm in a tough spot. Can you guys hear me? All right. So I'm not mic'd here. Did I turn this on?
I actually agree with most of what you said.
Oh, good. Can I borrow your microphone? So Robin Cartwright Harris from the Imperial School of London takes a big issue with Dr. Amen, just so you know. He does not think that Dr. Amen's material or his research is worth anything. And so there's a very big, it's hard to get a consensus on this. Now, and she mentioned ecstasy, MDMA. Psilocybin, which there's been just infinite, exhaustive MRI research on this, has absolutely zero toxicity or impact negatively on the brain. It does promote neurogenesis, which is a rather significant progress towards the, stemming the tide or staunching the flow of Alzheimer's and other things that are going on. So meditation, Spirituality, I'm big fans of this also. And there's no doubt that dimethyltryptamine, which is an endogenous chemical, we're not really sure exactly where it's produced in the body. We know it's produced.
But we know it's in our bodies
We know it's
and
produced
in every
in
piece
everything.
of life.
It's in
Yeah.
plants, trees, animals, humans. Dimethyltryptamine is a rather, by the way, a very potent psychedelic. It is the active ingredient that is in the ayahuasca brew, which is kind of a trending, popular thing now. But dimethyltryptamine can be taken just on its own, and that's a whole nother story. It really is a remarkable portal into consciousness, into these higher realms. I do like this idea of the ascension. You're there, but the concept that these are masquerading real spiritual experiences, the evidence is just not there. There is so much evidence that a dimethyltryptamine experience is indistinguishable from a near-death experience. So this is a
The folks at UVA take issue with that too, by the way. But hey, well, there are elements that are the same, and yet it's not.
No, the only issue is we're worried about the materialism versus idealism philosophical views. I am not a materialist. The experiences that I've had certainly would go into realms that I cannot explain from this, this.
It's a quick little side note. Materialism means that you can be reduced to your brain. In other words, when your brain shuts off, you're gone. That's the materialist view. There's another view, the idealist view, or the spiritual view, we'll call it, where if you die, no, your mind, there's mind separate from brain, and you can, whatever something of you, can continue on outside of your body, brain. So that's the non-materialist view that the folks at UVA DOPS are getting across with their research. And in fact, they are looking at these brain scans that these two are talking about, and they're seeing that unlike what they suspected was happening, they thought that when you take these drugs, your brain was essentially lighting up, like it was going, the 90% of your brain you're not using or whatever. They thought that was all coming alive. What's actually happening is these drugs get your brain out of the way. The filter is being taken away, and you're experiencing all that is in an unfiltered way, is the theory that they're looking at now.
It shuts down the default mode.
Joanne, do you have questions, by the way? Do you collect your questions now?
I agree.
We'll do
It
the
shuts down the default mode. I think that's a good way of summarizing it. And I think just having an experience of it or a taste of it can be useful. But in terms of your spiritual evolution, I took psychedelics. I know many people who did. I know people who took ayahuasca. It didn't make them into saintly, kind, loving people. I think that's a harder work, and we can do that harder work. And we can, let's all take a deep breath. It's something so simple. And let's remember to stretch. Everybody stretch up a bit. Remember to stretch and stand and move and laugh. Let's all laugh.
Let's actually stand. Let's do that stand again, if you don't
Laughing
mind.
is
While they're collecting the
contagious.
questions, we're going to stand. And
Laughing is more contagious than measles and healthier.
I love it. Way to go, man. All right. Well, I am going to stand on one leg and do my yoga while Joanne reads the questions.
Doesn't have to be hard,
Dr.
yoga.
Amrita.
We have a saying at Yogaville, the easy path is hard enough.
All right. Have a seat for 4 more minutes, and we'll have our break after a couple questions from Joanne. What do you got back there, Joanne?
Okay. Do you think that the body is able to come up with its own mushroom drug if it has the enzyme in it already to transmute the drug?
I would say yes, and the same is true for marijuana, the cannabinoid receptors, and any kind of opiate. The latest studies show that in taking OxyContin, actually, it takes longer to get out of pain, about twice as long. If you take even 5 days of Oxy, it takes twice as long for you to get out of pain as if you take nothing. So that's good science. I mean, we have a lot of fake news in science. It happens all the time. So what we can do is, again, as the mind gets gradually trained to be quiet and still, we discover we're home all along, Dorothy. God is omnipresent. If you're not seeing God omnipresent, look around. Oh, here too. Oh, here too. Really, it's so simple. It's just not easy because we're not used to it. But we're home all along. He put that in the Wizard of Oz, that line, that we're home all along, Dorothy, because he was a student of yoga. And the 4 different, and a fan of vinegar. Casey and the four, scarecrow and lion, represent the paths of yoga. So it's really, I think it's so simple. We can discover Ha'om, whenever we get quiet enough. Ha'om.
Okay, I only have one more, and this is more of a comment, so it's for both of you. I took 4 magic mushrooms not knowing what they were, and immediately was fabulously high for 4 days, laughing, flowing, wonderful. Then drove home, got home in half the time, felt like I was flying, but took me 6 months to write a logical sentence. Not good.
So let me address this. Is this on? I don't know the person who asked this question. I don't know really what this individual is actually talking about. It's not psilocybin. Psilocybin at the longest outside is a 6-hour experience. It generally is closer to 3 hours. You know, I tell people to count on 6, so they'll have plenty of time. Those that come and that I sit with that will go through this experience all drive home rather clear-minded and completely back to baseline like they are now, unless this is something where it's done in their own home. But this experience is not a protracted experience. It is 100% over within 6 hours. And then you do have a story, and there's an awful lot to talk about. You know, the 5 things about stress, 5 things about life. She talked about stress, she talked about cigarettes, and she talked about alcohol. She talked about 2 other things. But those 3 things have been shown, and there's an awful lot of science that I encourage you to look up because it's out, it's breaking right now, that psilocybin helps with anxiety and stress. It is unbelievably successful. They're having an almost 70%, 67% success rate with smoking cessation, and the same roughly numbers with alcoholism. So it is incredible, because the big issue that I see coming into our country from a societal standpoint is the oncoming of the baby boomer generation, which is going to die, and they're going to teach us how to die. Really, the world's gonna change when the baby boomers begin to die, which is not too far away. And the other issue is stress, right? So you have death and you have addiction. You have opioid addictions. So this is a tool that can be used in harmony. You know, something could happen where somebody could think we're on the opposite side of this. I'm actually on her side. I love meditation. I absolutely am a huge believer in it. But these tools, this medicine in particular, we're talking about psilocybin now, is an avenue that will allow, it's not a magic panacea. You don't take it. Of course, I've had ayahuasca, I've experienced the peyote, all these things, and I'm 100% in agreement that it does take the individual, that there is no shortcut. The individual must do the work. However, for a dolt like me, maybe I'm unable to sit around for 300 hours of meditation to receive that white light experience. I am able to do it, and it's, you know, some people kind of think it's a shortcut. There's a great book by Alan Baldera called Zigzag Zen, and it's about the current state of psychedelics in Buddhism. Just about anybody, Jack Kornfield, anybody who is an established pillar of the Buddhist community who's an American Buddhist, almost all of them, almost without exception, came to Buddhism because of psychedelics. And so then Buddhism, one of the 4 paths, you know, is no intoxicants. So there's been a lot of debate. You know, is psychedelic considered an intoxicant? It is about as different from being intoxicated as you can possibly imagine. There's a clarity that is presented. So I just want to make sure that we understand the research is there. Find it.
There's a lot of debate with the research, I will say that. We're all meditating all the time. On what is the question? Right now we're meditating on taking a break.
Yes, we are. Peace and love to each one of you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Dr. McLanahan, Alex Patterson. Thanks to all of you. We're going to take a 15-minute break, and we'll be back. You got to have a good time. Again, let's hear it for Quantum Leap, ladies and gentlemen. Fantastic. Just adding to that joyful vibration. Y'all having a good time so far? All right. Me too, in case you can't tell. Although I did hear from my 2 goddaughters in the back of the room that I'm not telling enough jokes or getting enough rim shots. So here you go. Did you hear the one that about the giant who got sick? Yeah, it's all over town. I only know 25 letters of the alphabet. I don't know why. Catherine Belisle, thank you very much. You guys are so
one
kind.
more. Come on.
Oh, one more. No, you bring it. You got one, Rusty? Come on.
No.
Mike.
What did 0 say to 8? Nice belt.
Oh, yeah. Nicely done. He's got 1 million of them. You guys. I was going to tell you a true story, though, that based on a couple things. We mentioned the Dalai Lama a couple times in the first half of the program. And about 20 years ago, some of you have been here that long, right, in Charlottesville. The Dalai Lama came to the University of Virginia as part of a Nobel laureate conference. Do some of you remember that? Remember, we need the applause. Oh, there you go. We can't see you. We got to hear you. Thank you. So the Dalai Lama was coming with, Desmond Tutu and all these amazing people. So Jane and I really wanted to go. We went to the point where we slept out in a parking lot over at the University of Virginia. We brought our tent, by the way, unlike the young people we were at the time. But we got tickets to see the Dalai Lama. So we were projecting all this stuff, what's it going to be like to be in the presence of this wonderful spiritual leader? Is he just going to be emanating love and peace, when he walks? What's it going to be like? Well, here's what it's like. So we get in our seats, just like everybody else. We wrote Old Cabell Hall, 1,200 seats or something like that, all just on the edge of our seats. Dalai Lama comes in, he's like this. I was like, okay, not what I expected right off the bat, right? A little scattered. He sees a little kid in the front row. He's like, come over here. And it's like, okay, I expect that, right? He's got this big, beautiful kid-like heart. How many times has this man made a speech in his life? What do you think? Like 1 million, right? When it's his turn to give his speech, he has his microphone right here. He's got his interpreter just over his shoulder because, he doesn't know all the words in English, and so once in a while he'll check with the interpreter to make sure it's right. But I swear to you, this is what he did. Now I must tell you, the most important thing that you must always remember is to go to the... Now I will say it one more time. You must never forget. Always go to the... We're all like on the edge of our seats, please. So we suspect that was a trick by the Dalai Lama. So he goes all the way through his thing, and love your enemy, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm just kidding. We're all one, all the stuff we've been talking about. Your enemy is only after his or her own happiness, just like you. So he went through how he forgave the Chinese for thinking that they're going to be happier by invading Tibet. Just unbelievable, right? So he goes through this whole worldview, and he gets to the very end of his talk, and I swear to you, this is what he said. He said, so this is my philosophy, and if it doesn't work for you, then just forget. We're all like... Did the Dalai Lama just drop the F-bomb on us for the... We were stunned, to say the least. And again, I'm used to hanging out with Osho, who used to read Playboy magazine jokes from his stage, just to show how irreverent it could be. But no, the Dalai Lama, we talked to a friend of his later, a Tibetan studies scholar, and he said what the Dalai Lama actually says is, if this doesn't make sense for you or doesn't work for you, then just forget it. Just forget. That's what the Dalai Lama said. I wanted to make sure I got it on the record. It was not the F-bomb. All right.